Class 3, relative keys, parallel keys, time signature, and note values. So relative keys, so remember this key signature chart? Yeah, so relative keys are two keys that have the same key signature. So like C major and A minor are relative keys, and G major and E minor are relative keys. D major and B minor are relative keys. A major and F sharp minor are relative keys. E major and C sharp minor are relative keys. B major and G sharp minor are relative keys. F sharp major and D sharp minor are relative keys. And C sharp, oh, you can't see. C sharp major and A sharp minor are relative keys. So relative keys are two keys, one major, one minor, that share the same key signature, and same for the flat section. So F major and D minor are relative keys. B flat major and G minor are relative keys. E flat major and C minor are relative keys. A flat major and F minor are relative keys. D flat major and B flat major minor are relative keys. G flat major and E flat minor are relative keys. And C flat major and A flat minor are relative keys. Now parallel keys. Parallel keys are two keys that have the same letter name but a different type. For example, A major and A minor are parallel keys, and so are B flat major and B flat minor. So if you want more examples, just give any key. For example, like, I don't know, C flat major and C flat minor are parallel keys. What? Okay. And another example would be like G major and G minor. So basically there are two letters that have the same two major and minor things that have the same letter. And there's also, so there's something called G flat major, but there's no such thing as G flat minor. But that doesn't mean that G flat major doesn't have a parallel key, because there's something called F sharp minor. And if you learned enharmonic equivalence, which I talked about last class, G flat and F sharp are enharmonic equivalents. So G flat major and F sharp minor are also parallel keys. Now bar lines. The staff is divided by bar lines into measures. A double bar at the end indicates the end of a piece of music. So in this diagram thing, one measure is like this thing. So if you want to count the measures, there's one measure, two measures, and three measures in this thing staff I gave you. And bar lines are like these thingies. This is one bar line. This is another bar line. And bar lines basically separate the measures, and measures can also be called bars. A double bar line at the end, over here, indicates the end of a piece of music. So if you had some music over here, and then it's the end, you would have to put a double bar line at the end, because then it means that it's not over if you don't put it. Now note values. So this thing at the top is called a whole note, and one whole note is equal to 2 half notes. So like one whole note can be separated into 2 half notes, and each half note is equal to 2 quarter notes, and each quarter note is equal to 2 eighth notes, and each eighth note is equal to 2 16th notes. And of course there are also 32nd notes and 64th notes, but those are uncommon, but they still exist. And there are also, just like notes, there are also different values of rests. So this is the whole rest, but in a real staff you would need this line at the top. In a real staff, if it was like this, it would have to be hanging down from the 4th line like this. If you draw another line and then put that under, you would get deducted points or marks. So don't put that line if you're actually drawing it. The line's just there over here so that you know it's like this from under, and not like the half rests, which is on top. So just like half rests, if you have a staff, in the real staff, you have to put it on top of the 3rd line. You don't draw a line and do it. So each whole rest is equal to 2 half rests, and each half rest is equal to 2 quarter rests. Each quarter rest is equal to each 2 eighth rests, and there's 16th rests, just like in notes. There are 16th notes, eighth notes, quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. Now, dotted rhythm. A dot placed beside a note or rest lengthens the value of the note or rest by half of its original value. So for example, the first note we have over here, this is the whole note. So if you add this dot, you see this dot beside the whole note. The dot means that you have to lengthen the value of the note or rest by half of its original value. So the whole note, so there would be the whole note plus half of a whole note, and half of a whole note is a half note. So if you see a whole note and a dot, that means the actual value would be a whole note plus a half note. Now same for the half note. If you see a half note with a dot, that means it's 1 half note. If you see a half note with a dot, there's a half note, and you have to add half of a half note. So half of a half note is a quarter note, and same for the quarter with a dot. So there's a quarter note. So there's a quarter note over here, and then you have to add half of a quarter note. So half of a quarter note is an eighth note, and same with the eighth note. There's an eighth note, so an eighth note, and there's a dot, so you have to add half of an eighth note, which is a 16th note. So there's an eighth note plus a 16th note. And same for the rests. If you see a whole rest with a dot, you first have a whole rest plus half of a whole rest. Half of a whole rest is a half rest. So it's a whole rest plus a half rest, and same for the half rest. Half rest with a dot means there's a half rest, and you have to have half of a half rest, which is a quarter rest. And same for the quarter rest. There's a quarter rest, and with a dot, you would have a quarter rest plus half of a quarter rest, which is a half O, which is an eighth rest. And then there's an eighth note with the dot, means you would have an eighth rest plus half of an eighth rest, which is a 16th rest. So basically you have that value plus half of its original value. That's what the dot means. A tie combines the value of two notes of the same pitch together into one longer sound. So if you have a note over here, and there's a tie, which is this thingy, with another note here, that means you combine the value of these two notes. So it's 2 quarters notes. So 2 quarter notes added together is a half note. So if you see 2 quarter notes with a tie, that means you have to hold it as a half note. Now, the second example is a half note tied with a quarter note. So a half note tied with a quarter note, if you add a half note to a quarter note, that's equal to a dotted half note, because it's a dotted half note, because yeah, it's a dotted half note. So if you see a half note tied with a quarter note, then that means hold it as a dotted half note. Time signature. Time signature shows how many beats or pulses are in each bar. Also, a bar is basically a measure. They are usually written after the clef and key signature. Here are some examples of what a time signature could look like. So in the examples below, this 4/4 is a time signature, so is this 3/4, 3/4, and 2/4, 2/4. And by the way, these are 3 separate staffs, so don't get confused. This is the beginning of one staff, the beginning of the second staff, and the beginning of the third staff. Time signature. The top number represents the number of beats or pulses in each measure. The bottom number indicates which note gets the beat in each bar. So in the example I showed, well, one of the examples I showed before, there's 4/4. So there's 4/4. So there's the top number and the bottom number. So the top number represents the number of beats or pulses, and the bottom number indicates which note gets the beat, and I'll be explaining more in the next few slides. Time signature, simple duple time. In simple duple time, the upper number of the time signature is always 2. This means that there are 2 beats in each measure. The lower number, which indicates the note that receives each beat, can be 2, 4, 8, or 16. So in this first example over here, it's 2 at the top. So the 2 at the top means that there are 2 beats in each measure. So there are 2 beats in each measure. And the 2 on the bottom is that it means that the half note, which is 1/2, receives 1 beat. So there are basically 2 half notes in each bar, but it doesn't have to be half notes. The C with the cross is the symbol for 2/2 time, also called cut time or à la brève. Now in this example, there is a 2 on the top, which means there are 2 beats in each measure, and there's a 4 on the bottom, which means the quarter note, which is 1/4, receives 1 beat. The time signature, simple duple time. Examples of things in simple duple time. So in the first one, there's a 2 on the top and a 2 on the bottom, which means there are 2 half notes in each measure. So 1 half note, 2 half notes, which is also equal to 4 quarter notes, which is also equal to 1 half note, and 2 quarter notes, which is also equal to 1 half note and 1 half rest. Now the second one is 2/4, so that means there are 2 quarter notes in each measure. So 1 quarter note, 2 quarter notes, and that's also equal to 4/8 notes, which is also equal to 1 quarter note, and 2/8 notes, which is 1 quarter note and 1 quarter rest. Now 2/8, which that means that there are 2/8 notes in each bar. So 1/8 note, 2/8 notes, and that's also equal to 4/16 notes, which is also equal to 1/8 note, and 2/16 notes, which is equal to 1/8 note plus 1/8 rest. And the last one is 2/16, so there are 2/16 notes in each measure. So 1/16 note and 2/16 notes, and that's also equal to 4 32nd notes, which is equal to 1/8 note, and is also equal to 1/16 note and then a 16th rest. Problems. Add bar lines to complete each measure. So the time signature is 2/4, which means that there are 2 quarter notes in each measure. So if we draw the lines and count, there is 1 quarter note and 2 quarter notes, so there needs to be a bar line here. And then there's 1 quarter note, well, 2 half notes, 2 eighth notes is equal to 1 quarter note, and 1 quarter rest, so there's another bar line here. And then there's 1 half note, which is equal to 2 quarter notes. And then there's 4 16th notes, which is equal to a quarter note, and 2 eighth notes, which is equal to a quarter note. And then there's 2 quarter notes. So since there is already a double bar at the end, you don't need to add anything. Time signature, simple triple time. That's when there's a 3 on the top. So the number on the bottom means what type of note there is. So 4 means quarter note, so there are 3 quarter notes. 2 means half notes, so there are 3 half notes. And 8 means eighth note, so there are 3 eighth notes. And time signature, simple triple time. So simple triple time is when you have a 3 on the top. So there are 3 beats in each measure, and if there's a 2 on the bottom, that means the half note, which is 1/2, receives 1 beat. 4/4 time means that the top 4 means that there are 4 beats in each measure, and the bottom 4 means that the quarter note, which is 1/4, receives 1 beat. C is the symbol for 4/4 time, also called common time.